had no reason to inflict special punishment on this new faith. How could the Romans know what were the concerns of a comparatively small religious sect which was connected with Judaism and must have seemed to most Romans as identical to it? 10th, some Christians allege that the passage in Tacitus could not have been forged because his style of writing could not have been copied. But this argument is without merit, since there is no style that can't be copied by the clever forger. And the more unusual, distinctive, and peculiar a style is, like that of Tacitus, the easier it is to imitate. 11th, this passage, which would have served Christian writers better than any other writing of Tacitus, is not quoted by any of the Christian fathers. It is not quoted by Tertullian, though he read and often quoted the works of Tacitus. 12th, Eusebius in the 4th century cited all the evidences of Christianity obtained from Jewish and pagan sources, but makes no mention of Tacitus. And lastly, Tacitus is assumed to have written this around 117 AD, about 80 years after the time Jesus supposedly lived. Therefore, in all probability, Tacitus derived his information about Jesus from the Gospels or oral tradition. He merely reproduced rumors. So what does it matter whether or not Tacitus wrote this passage? Who cares? Even if he had written it, he could only have received the information 100 years after the time being written about from people who had told it to others. Hearsay. It doesn't matter, therefore, whether or not the passage is genuine. In closing our discussion of Tacitus, it's important to note that many other points had to be deleted because of time constraints. But those presented are more than sufficient for any reasonably open-minded observer to conclude the passage is without merit. The third non-Christian writer's Christian site to prove Jesus lived is the Roman historian Suetonius, who stated in section 25 of his book entitled The Deified Claudius, quote, "Since the Jews constantly made disturbances at the instigation of Chrestus, the Emperor Claudius expelled them from Rome," unquote. Several problems are immediately evident. First, the name in the text is not Christus or Christ, but Chrestus, C-H-R-E-S-T-U-S, which is by no means the usual designation of Jesus. Yet it is a common name, especially among Roman freedmen. Hence, the whole passage may have nothing whatever to do with Christianity. Second, this passage contains no evidence for the historicity of Jesus, even if we substitute Christus for Chrestus. Christus is merely the Greek-Latin translation of the word Messiah, and the phrase, "at the instigation of Christus," could refer to the Messiah generally, and not at all to Jesus in particular. And lastly, Chrestus was not only a familiar personal name, it was also a name of the Egyptian god Serapis, or Osiris, who had a large following at Rome, especially among the common people. Hence, Christians may be either the followers of a man named Chrestus or of Serapis. This brings us to our fourth and final individual, Pliny the Younger, a proconsul in the province of Bithynia in Asia Minor, what is today Western Turkey. He wrote a letter to the Emperor Trajan in Rome in 113 AD, which is also used by apologetic supporters to prove Jesus really lived. Pliny said, quote, "I have laid down this rule in dealing with those who were brought before me for being Christians. I asked whether they were Christians. If they confessed, I asked them a second and a third time, threatening them with punishment. If they persevered, I ordered them to be executed. They assured me that their only crime or error was this, that they came together on a certain day before it was light to sing among themselves a hymn to Christ as to a God, and to bind themselves by an oath not to do anything that was wicked, that they would commit no theft, no robbery or adultery, nor break their word, nor deny that anything that had been entrusted to them is entrusted to them, that they would restore it when asked. I therefore deemed it necessary to extract the truth by torture from 2 slave women who were called deaconesses. But I found it was nothing but a bad and excessive superstition. Its sacred rites, which had been allowed to lapse by them, are being performed again, and flesh of sacrificial victims is on sale everywhere, though till recently scarcely anyone could be found willing to buy it." Unquote. Several problems are immediately apparent with this passage. First, the letter implies that Bithynia, a large province in western Turkey, had a large Christian population at that